Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Lunar Counseling Podcast. I'm your host, Kiara Brown, licensed social counselor, EMDR certified therapist, certified hypnotherapist, and the owner of Lunar Counseling. This podcast is a space for grounded, real conversations with therapists, healers, and guides about the deeper layers of mental health, trauma, embodiment, and what truly means to heal in an integrated and sustainable way. Today, I'm excited to welcome Laura Jacobs to the podcast. Laura is a licensed clinical social worker in private practice serving Oklahoma and Texas. She has been in the mental health field since 2005 and has worked across a variety of clinical settings, bringing both depth of experience and warmth to her work. Laura is especially passionate about supporting teens and young adults, individuals navigating infertility, and mothers who are trying to hold it all together while quietly carrying so much. She was born and raised in Oklahoma. Laura is currently counting down the days until she can live somewhere with all 4 seasons and lots of snow. So if you want to, come to Pennsylvania with me. She's a mom and stepmom to 2 teenage boys and is in the tender in-between space of managing what life may look like as an empty nester. Outside of therapy, she loves animals, 90s hip-hop and R&B, dancing, traveling, and sleeping late whenever she can. Laura brings both clinical insight and lived experience into her work, creating spaces that feel relatable, grounded, and deeply supportive. So welcome, Laura. I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to be here as well.
So I'd love to ask everyone, what brought you into this therapy world?
Probably like most of us, I have my own personal lived experience. I struggled quite a bit as a kid and especially as a teenager with my own mental health, some really like out of control behaviors and a lot of anger and all of those kinds of things. And I ended up going through an intensive outpatient like day treatment program that really, to this day, I will say that program probably saved my life. If not literally, then at least metaphorically, in terms of I was on a really bad, scary kind of path. And had that not happened, who knows what my life would have ended up looking like. So by the time I was finished with that, I think I was in that program for about 8 or 9 months. And by the time I was finished, I had decided, I think I want to help teenagers like that are struggling like I have and do. And so that's what brought me into the world of therapy.
That's, yeah, that's so cool. You took like something that was like really hard for yourself and like use it as a transformation story to help other people through it.
Yeah.
What's like your main like niche that you generally work in?
It's from day one and all the way through now. When I say 21 years in the field, it makes me feel much older than what I think that I am, but it's always been teens. It's always been teens and young adults. I just really love being a person in their life that is like totally in their corner. But you can also be sassy with teens and young adults, and I'm pretty sassy. So it's just a really good like fit for my personality. And then over the years, as life happened, I ended up experiencing and struggling with secondary infertility and there's some IVF treatments that ultimately were not successful. And that really opened my eyes to the impact that something like that has on your mental health. So then that drew me into working with infertility and then being a mom and having clients that start with me because of infertility treatments and then they get pregnant and they want to stay with me. It was a natural segue into motherhood as well.
Yeah, that's that's phenomenal. I'm sorry about the IVF's not working in the way you wanted to because I know how expensive that is, and then to not like there's not
Yeah.
only the financial drain, but the emotional drain too. Because I had
Yeah.
my own infertility journey, and just like the thought, like, what's wrong with my body? Like, why can't my body do what's supposed to do? That whole thought
Absolutely.
comes into play like so much.
Yeah. And even when you logically understand that's not a fair feeling or a fair thought, like you still feel that way.
Yeah,
Like the primary thing that makes my body different from a man's, and it doesn't work. It's not cooperating. It's not. And I got pregnant with no problem with my first. So I never saw it coming. There was no reason for me to have thought that I was going to have trouble.
Yeah, it is crazy. Like sometimes our bodies like will work the way they're supposed to. Other times it's nope, not happening, and it really is no fault of our own. But like you said, like we're supposed to be like the creators and like the life givers and all these things, and it's like when it's not happening, it's a case of what's wrong, or did I do something? That whole thought spiral comes
Yes.
into play.
Yes. Yeah. And you start questioning. And if you spend any time on like the internet about it, which, because of course we do, you'll start seeing things like, oh, I shouldn't be eating dairy. I shouldn't be eating sugar. I shouldn't be using this kind of soap. Like you can pick apart your whole life trying to find a reason or trying to find the thing that's going to make the next cycle stick here. And it becomes all consuming.
Yes, it does. I remember I was on my own journey. Like I had completely changed my eating habits. I didn't work out as much as I should because I had a very time traveling. I was traveling into homes doing in-home therapy, so I had no time to like really work out because I was constantly in the car. Like
Right.
definitely changed how I ate, and then I had to do all the other things, and it just wasn't happening. And honestly, it wasn't until I was like just gave up. Like I was like, I'm just done. I'm just done because it's just so much of like just trying and nothing happening.
Yeah.
And and for me, it was actually quarantine from COVID that actually helped me get pregnant because I wasn't driving anymore. I was home. But I wasn't going to sleep
Ah,
at 10 o'clock at night. So like, I actually had that with my husband and like all these things, and finally got pregnant.
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm so glad that it happened for you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and definitely been a whirlwind of a journey, but it's definitely been fun.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now that mine are older, it's reopened that grief for me in terms of the cycles we didn't work. And then we made the decision to stop trying. It wasn't like the clinic told us you can't try anymore, or we made the decision to stop trying. And all of the reasons that we made that decision are still like just as valid or even more valid now than when we decided to stop. But it's like the head and the heart are two different things.
Yeah. How old are your kids now?
My stepson is 18 and my son is 17.
Oh, so they're really close in age, and like you definitely are ready for college.
Yes, and that's a whole new world to navigate.
Yeah. Are they have, if you don't mind me asking, are they planning on staying close to home, or are they planning on moving farther away?
So my 18-year-old will graduate this year and has been accepted into a university that's about an hour away. So still in state, still close. My son, who is a junior, you talk to him one day, he wants to take a gap year. You talk to him the next day, he's going to do trade school. And maybe he'll go to school in Chicago. He's just all over the place.
He's very much a free spirit.
Yeah, he's not found his calling quite yet. And that's very different from what I see in my practice because a lot of the teens I work with are very high achieving, very like booked and busy. They're in this sport and that sport and this club and they play this instrument and they've applied all over the world, some of them. So it's hard sometimes to not come home and be like, what are you doing? Like other kids your age, they've applied to schools in other countries.
So like, it's hard to like that, like the comparison piece. Like even with like with the siblings, like you have the older ones, like I know what I'm doing. I'm going to this university. I'm going to go there. I'm going to do this career. Da. And then the other one's, yeah, it's fun wrong. Be a free spirit. It's
Yeah,
not bad. It's just different.
it is. It is. And trying to keep that in mind when I do, because I do find myself doing the comparison thing. So being able to keep in mind that like his path is not going to look like somebody else's path, and that's okay. Easier to say that as the therapist to a client or to a parent of a client. It's harder when it's like your child.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like this pressure as a therapist to have like your make sure your kids are all together as well? Like they have to like
Oh, yes.
look a certain way?
Yes. And I have said, I've known through my career that girls hit their really hard times of teenager years, like kind of 12 to 14, 15, especially that 14-year-old age. Whew. And boys, it's a little bit later. But I just was really caught off guard when he turned about 16. It really started a lot of the like headbutting and looking for that independence, but still needing me and just all of that. And there were definitely times where I was saying to my husband, I don't even know if I'm a very good teen therapist because I obviously am not he's not listening or we're not communicating well or we're arguing all the time. So do I even know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think it's like just part of life too. I mean, my kids are still younger, but even like then, like now teaching them like the basic skills and like them like pushing back against that, like not listening to me. Do I actually know what I'm talking about? But honestly, I do because I can help all my other clients. But it's like also sitting back, like, yeah, because I'm not their mother. Like the whole different relationship piece that
Yes.
comes into play in that spot because you're mom. You're not his therapist. It's like he's gonna push back and be like, no, I want to be separate from mom and do my
Yeah.
thing and
Yeah. Do you see kids in your practice?
not a lot. I have two teens that I'm working with currently. I do like working with. I used to actually starting out. I worked mostly predominantly with kids. I do prefer teens over like little kids personally, but both are fun too because like you said, like you can be a little more sassy. You can be a little bit more playful with them. But then I also love with
Yeah.
adults because I can be like really real with them. I can be like,
Yeah.
listen, come on now.
Yeah. And that's why I really enjoyed my practice having two very separate niches. There was like the adult, like the infertility, pregnancy, postpartum, perinatal moms. And then there's like the teenagers, young adults. And it's been challenging to find successful ways to market that because if I don't want to leave any, I don't want to just say I work with teens because I really love working with these adults in this way too. But from a marketing perspective, it's been challenging. But I don't think I would change it because I like being able to tap into just different parts of myself clinically, depending on is it a teenager in front of me or is it an adult professional person sitting there?
Yeah. I like with the kids pieces, like you can be a little bit more playful. Like you can do a little bit like of the other things too, but you also just doesn't have to always be so heavy. It's a little more like just skill building with them or just like letting them vent about like the drama in their friend group and like some like perspective like, okay, so this thing is going on, but how can like you manage you in the situation and not try to manage everyone else around you?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of teens I see over and throughout my career where I've had to come to accept that I'm probably just planting seed. I'm the one spot they have every week or every other week that it's all about them. They don't have to share, they don't have to reciprocate in a way that they do in other places in their life. And they can talk about whatever they want. They can say whatever they want. I'm not the language police. I'm not the, if you need to spend an hour talking about how much wish you were adopted into another family or you can't stand your mom or whatever. And so many of those teens need that space because they don't feel heard anywhere else or they feel like they have to perform or like show a version of themselves. So it's not always that there's like these huge life-changing aha moments with teens the way that sometimes there is with adults.
Yeah.
And I've had to, over the years, periodically remind myself as a therapist that, like, that's probably pretty age appropriate. And I just hope that things I'm saying at some point in their life, they'll be like, oh, okay, this is that. I remember when she said that. Or I know what actually to do about this because we talked about in therapy last year. But with littles, I've worked with littles and I'm just not that therapist. I'm just not that therapist.
Yeah. There's a special person to do that. And you have to be able to stay playful and stay like almost
Yeah.
kid-like when you're
Yes.
working with them. And I personally have a hard time staying like that because I am not that person anymore. And I don't think I
I
ever really was, even when I was a kid either. So it's trying to tap into that part of myself. That's why I'm like, when I started my own practice, like 14 and up, like that's
Mm,
it.
mm.
Like not doing younger than that.
Yeah. Yeah. I need you to be able to talk to me and tell me what you're actually feeling or thinking or yeah.
Yeah. It's like a random tangential question though. Why do you want to move to where there's more seasons and snow versus staying where it's warmer?
Oh, because it's not just it gets really hot here and it's humid and the summers are just longer and longer. And like some people have seasonal affective disorder in the winter where it's like they get the winter blues and like I get the like summer range.
Okay.
I just don't like it. And so I don't want to be outside. I don't want to go do anything. And my favorite seasons are fall and winter. And we just, especially the last as everything is getting warmer because of climate change, it was 80 degrees on Christmas here. Yeah.
Unheard of. Oh yeah, also I'm in Pennsylvania, so it's definitely
Yeah. Now, before 5 or 6 years ago, that would have been unheard of here as well. And it's happened twice now since 2020. I really want to be somewhere where there's like distinct seasons and I love snow. Now, I say that I've never lived anywhere where I have to like shovel and it turns when it's like black by the second day and you're just looking at it. I don't know, maybe I would feel differently, but I love snow, so I'm hoping after my son graduates next year, the goal is to move northeast somewhere. We're still trying to negotiate with one another where that might be.
so your husband's on board with moving.
He is. He feels like he needs to be in the DC area for his work. And I am drawn to Western upper state New York. And he's not opposed to that area. He's just not sure if he can make it work like professionally right now to be in that area. So
Yeah.
we're in a kind of a weird, it's okay, we're really going to do this. We have to start planning. We're about 14, 15 months out from that timeline. We need to probably start narrowing it really down and starting to prepare for that, but also not wanting to lock in on anything just quite yet because 15 months is still a long time. A lot of life can happen and
Yeah.
something might change, but I'm ready to be somewhere that is not so hot. And yeah.
Yeah. I can't speak for New York because I've never lived in New York, but I just know here, like our summers get really humid and muggy. So
Yeah.
it's like you still have that. We can't have like high 80s, low 90 days with a high heat index in the hundreds, but that's not
Right.
common. Just mostly in July, actually, is when it usually happens, at least here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. It's not uncommon here to have days in the summer and now even into September that are 100 degrees plus a heat index of something to where it feels like 108, feels like 110. And it's just, ugh.
Yeah, like you can't go out in that. You can't do anything in that.
No, no. I truly don't know how people even further south of, so I'm in Oklahoma City. And like people like in my clients in Houston that talk about like the humidity down there, or people like in Mississippi, Alabama. I don't know how people do it. I can't.
Yeah, I have a brother that lives in North Carolina. I'm like, you can keep that weather down there.
Yes.
I'm
Did
not
you
going
get
there.
the snowstorm this weekend?
Yeah, we got snow. It wasn't as bad as like the other one that we had. So we got half a centimeter and it's gone already.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but earlier in February, I think is when we had the big snowstorm. Yeah, we got about a foot of snow.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So that was the most we've had in 10 years, though. The last time we got a really big snowfall, I was in undergrad. So
Mm.
yeah,
Okay.
10, 12 years, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a pretty heavy hitting winter out that way from what I have been seeing.
Yeah. It's definitely been really cold. Like we've had a lot more like -11,
Oh,
-20 days.
ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been chilly.
Those are the days that you're glad for telehealth, maybe.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I still have to go out though because kids still have school and have to have
Yeah,
childcare.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah. Although a lot of schools nowadays, ever since COVID, they do like flexible instruction days instead of actual snow days. So they still have school. It's just virtual.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel bad for that. I'm like, man, give these kids a snow day. Like, we got snow days growing up. That was part of like childhood. Don't make these kids sign in. Come on.
Yeah. It does seem productive too because like parents still have to work. Like just because the kid has a day off of school, it doesn't mean like the parents do. So
Yeah.
especially young kids, like they're going to daycare or they're going
Right.
to a family member's house. Like, they're not going to have access to this stuff, especially like the younger kids. High schoolers, they can stay home by themselves, but not in elementary.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And then you're trying to do session and you can hear them like not signed in on their whatever they're supposed to be doing, or they're tearing something up and you're just trying to be present for a client. You're like, oh my gosh.
Yep. Yeah. But so actually, I want to ask back on like more about you. So, what made you decide the social work track rather than like the LPC track?
Yeah. So I actually started as a psychology major and I was like, I'm going to go through and get my doctorate. And that was my plan. And I started out at a community college because I realized through my junior and senior year that I just needed probably a little bit more structure and like smaller class sizes than just going to the big university where I'd be like one of 600 in a class or something.
Yeah.
Because, yeah. So I started off at community college and by my second year, I had started to waver a bit. Do you want to be in school for 7, 8, 9, 10 years? I don't know. And I think it was like an English class or something. We had to do a research paper on our degree path and what you could do with each level of the degree and all of that. And when I came across the information that with a master's degree in psychology, it really limits you to what you can do. If you want to practice independently as a psychologist, you pretty much, at least back then, I don't know if it's changed, you pretty much have to go ahead and get your doctorate. So that kind of planted a further seed of doubt. And I don't even remember who it was, but when I transferred into the university, the big university, my junior year, somehow I came across social work as a degree. And I just always thought that was the people that worked for DHS, which is our like CPS, like Children Protective Services.
Yeah.
And that was not something I was ever interested in doing. And somebody told me to look into it. And I ended up sitting down with a professor that was in the social work department. And by the end of that meeting, I was like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be. Like, this is because the framework of social work is very justice oriented, very rooted in advocacy, and even has a political element to it that maybe some of the other therapy degree tracks don't lean onto as heavily. And that's just very much kind of me. So I thought, oh my gosh, like this sounds amazing. And then, so I switched my major and by the end of the first class of my intro to social work class, like there was never a second doubt after that. Like never even anything else I would have considered. So
Really cool. Yeah, that makes sense too. And it's definitely changed like for like psychology, like where you don't have to have a doctorate. Because like, I only have my master's. I did think about doing the doctoral track, but did not go that way. Now I have two young kids. I'm like, I am not going back to school.
I know sometimes I'm like, should I go get my doctorate in something? And I'm just like, absolutely not. I honestly, my cognitive process now and my memory now is so different than when I was in my 20s that I'm not even convinced that I would be able to learn as well something new in that way. And I don't want to take on a student loan debt. So,
Yeah, that's
it,
definitely part of it.
yeah.
I think too, just like in our field, like we can, the only really big difference that at least that I've seen is, especially for like my degree, if I were to get my PhD, the only difference it would make is a little bit with insurance reimbursement, which is not even that much.
Yeah.
And I can do assessments, which is not what I want to do to begin with. I don't want to be doing assessments. So like, why would I go to
Right.
school to do something I don't really want to do to get
Yeah.
maybe a slight increase for insurance reimbursement?
And I don't like research. And I know that's obviously a part of a PhD program, clear,
Yeah.
like your dissertation. And I'm just, so then I committed to that. And that was my goal when I didn't really fully understand what that was going to entail. Let me get the dog. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
She found an empty can of cat food. But yeah, once I got in it and really had more of an understanding of like how long 7 or 8 or 9 years of college actually might be and how much money. And so like, but I'm so grateful that whoever it was that I stumbled across at that time that said, you should look into social work. I wish I could remember who it was because I feel like I owed them like a huge debt of gratitude because I really had no idea that was even a degree, that you could do therapy with that degree.
How long were you in the community, like community mental health, before you did your own private practice?
So I did homebound agency work was my first job out of session or out of grad school. So I completely related earlier when you said getting home super late. Like there were certain nights I would start my last session at 7 or 7:30 and I'd be 20, 30 minutes away from home, drive time out in the middle of nowhere, like in somebody's home doing therapy with their kids. And so I started that. And then I moved into a true like community mental health practice for our state department of mental health. And I did that for about 7 years and still probably the best job I've ever had. I made lifelong friends at that agency. And I do think my experience with community mental health was not as awful as a lot of people, but that was 1000% because of my boss and the culture that she facilitated and created in her. She seemed to have a really good knack for hiring people that were going to be like a good fit for the team. But I was making, with a license, I was making $34,000 a year. And I was a single mom, like single in every aspect of the word, like no child support, no co-parent, nothing. He was just completely absent. So I was having to work 6 days a week doing contract therapy as well, just to keep a roof over our heads. And shockingly, I burned out. Just wow. So at that point, I knew I needed to stay with the state because of the benefits and the stability. So our state department of mental health has a whole other kind of like side to it that's all the admin and like the program management and getting the grants and all of that. So I moved into that space for about 7 years and did grant management work. And then COVID happened. And when we had to return to the office, it just broke something in me a little bit because I was just like, why? We've been super COVID conscious this whole like last year and a half or whatever. I will say they let us stay at home much longer than I thought they would. And I did very much appreciate that. But they did eventually make us come back and there were no mask rules, there were no vaccination rules, there was no distancing built in. And it really upset me because I just thought, why should someone else's decisions with how they spend their time be putting potentially me and my family at risk for something that we've worked really hard to be safe and not, we've sacrificed a lot to not catch this. So that's when I first started thinking about private practice because it had never been something I was interested in ever. That was just not even on my radar. I was just like, no, I'm not, I don't ever need to do that. But here I am.
Yeah. I mean, I know some community health programs like can be really fulfilling and awesome. And I always
Mhm.
say that you in this city you have to do some form of community mental health, like especially out of grad school, to really cut your
Yeah.
teeth. Because like you're a
Yeah.
baby therapist at that point, like you can't just go right into private practice or group practice. I feel like because like you don't know what's out there, you don't know what you don't know, so you have to get
Right.
exposed to a lot. Right, though, like you don't get paid like a really livable wage to do the
No.
work that we do, especially with a higher degree. Like we need a
Yeah.
master's degree to do what we do. We don't get always paid a master's level
Right.
salary, which is like,
Well, and at the community mental health level, to be paid that caseloads are high. You're much more likely to be dealing with like crisis intervention stuff. You have the families that I was working with had multiple layers of challenges and needs, poverty, and there's just so much that intersects. So they're just much more complex cases. You get anything and everything that comes through the door. The paperwork burden to fill Medicaid at an agency is significant. So it's like it takes a lot out of you to work at community mental health and then to be paid so insultingly. And I will say they have raised the salary for those therapists like significantly, but it came years and years too late for me. I just couldn't. And then now and circling, tying that into the infertility stuff, I had to work so much when my son was little that I missed out on a lot of time with him. And I just always thought with my next one, I'll be able to be more present. Maybe that will like heal some of that guilt and sadness for me of how much he was with my parents or in daycare and then I wasn't able to have another one. And so then that even just hits like harder because it's like, if I had have known then this is, I would have probably found a different job that paid me more. So I wasn't, even though I loved that job, I loved my boss, I loved my coworkers. That was a huge reason I stayed. Maybe I would have left and done something else that at least paid more to where I was home every weekend type of thing. And
yeah.
so, yeah,
It's like kind of like that hindsight thing. But you're right though, like it is like it puts us in the situation where we have to fight for survival. And
yes.
then the people in our personal lives suffer for it because
Mhm.
we're just trying to get our basic needs met when we're helping other people meet their basic needs and their emotional needs at the same time, which
Yeah.
feels like a completely messed up system. And hope things get better, but it takes time.
Yeah. And it's just so unfortunate because, like you were saying, as baby therapists, community mental health is a fantastic place to get your foot in the door. Like, you're going to learn if you do your supervision and you have a good supervisor at community mental health, you're going to learn so much that you would not learn if you just go straight into private practice.
Yeah.
And so I know 1,000% I'm a better therapist for having started. I wasn't like a fresh out of school therapist, but I was still finishing up my supervision. So like I was still under 2 years in the field when I moved over into community mental health. And so I was still a baby therapist. I know I'm a better therapist because of that experience. Or maybe if people don't want to do that, maybe go work inpatient somewhere. You're gonna learn so much. And I think that it's really unfortunate that the way the system has set that up to exploit therapists has meant that now you see this big push of therapists graduating and wanting to start a private practice right off the gate because of the finances. But that kind of opens up a bag of worms of where are you getting the opportunities to learn across a wide variety of clients if you're straight into private practice.
Yeah, it's true. Cause like whenever I first started out, I thought I was like, just focusing mostly on like kids. right? Because like, all I was exposed to was like, was kids. So it's like, always okay, so I'm going to work with kids and do all this stuff with kids. And then like, as you're growing, I'm like, the kids are fine, teens are fine, but also there's this piece that like was like missing too. And also like, you're so constrained in like the trains that you can get as well. So like, whenever I did school
Yeah.
based, I can only do trainings that pertain to kids, not that I wanted to learn more about or it really interests me because it wasn't something I would be using on the day.
Yeah.
And that's why I like about private practice. Like you can do what lights you up. Like you can work with people that light you up, but you have to
Yeah.
learn what that is by finding out what doesn't light you up in the field.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And I think too, when you work like in a community mental health situation, you just learn so much more about like your community and the resources that are available. And I just think it makes a much more like well-rounded experience.
Yeah.
So
Let's you form connections too, because if like, so, like with the resources, if someone that comes to your private practice, like says I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z, oh, so you can go here and here, and like you can actually direct them on like where they can actually get that help more
yeah,
easily versus just someone you research it. No, you just know because you already have those connections.
right. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. So what would you say to like young therapists that might be like single like you were, and then might be in the situation where they're like working a lot and they just make ends meet? What type of advice would you give them?
Oh, that's a good one. I guess I would say, especially if it's like a single parent type situation, is that those years with your kids are so precious and they don't feel fast when you're in it, but they are fast. And so it may look like being somewhere that is not your ideal dream job, but it pays you a little bit more to help relieve some of that financial stress and gives you that time at home with your kids. That's valuable. But I also completely understand being in a position of I've got to do what I've got to do. And this, I think for me, what future now, like current me would encourage that version of me is don't wait so long to make some of those changes so that you do free up some of that time. I waited a really long time before I felt like, oh, okay, I've got to switch gears here so that I'm not working so much. And by that time I was really burnt out as a therapist, which did not feel good. But also that shows up at home too. Like you get home and your patience is shot because you've given it all to work and it no longer feels rewarding because you're so burned out. And so I can appreciate feeling like you don't always have options. And maybe sometimes you really don't. But I would just say always stay curious, always continue looking for opportunities that would give you a little bit more financial security so that you can be present at home in the way that you want to be.
So how'd you come out of the burnout? Because like sometimes if especially for how long you were working, like that burnout takes you out of the field really quickly. So what did you
Yeah.
do?
Yeah. So I moved into admin work. I moved into grant management work it was not clinical at all. I was not seeing clients at all. And for better or worse, working on the admin side, there's just not as much work. Like I could actually enjoy my lunch break. I could take off for a doctor's appointment or sick or something for my son's school or vacation and not feel guilty about missing all those client sessions or then feeling like I've got to stack my schedule as soon as I get back to make up for the sessions that they missed, which I mean, private practice, that we're right back into that dance. But it was a slower pace type of work, at least most of the time. There'd be times when a deadline was approaching or then it would get hectic, but I just had to step away from the clinical piece completely and do more of that back behind the scenes programming management type work. And I was there for, I think, 6 or 7 years. And I don't know if or when I would have gone back to therapy if COVID had not happened. I missed therapy, but I just was comfortable where I was at that point. And I actually, when I first realized that I was really thinking about private practice, I went and got a job with a small agency to do contract therapy. They focus on mainly teens and young adults. And I took 2 clients from them because I thought, let me make sure I even still like therapy. Before I quit the state job with state benefits, let me make sure I still like therapy. I did that. And pretty quickly I was like, yeah, I'm ready to go back. But now this is starting my 4th year of private practice, and the hustle aspect of it is just so much more exhausting than what I was prepared for. Like, you hear therapists and private practice say that, but if you don't have that experience, you know it, and you're like, okay, yes, that might be hard, but you just don't know. And I feel like starting to notice some creep, that burnout. And it's not necessarily the client work. It's where's
And
the next client coming from? Oh, it's been this long since I had a referral. Oh, this person dropped and I don't have anyone to take their space. Like, it's the economic side of being your own boss that has really been chipping away at me.
yeah, definitely a balancing act. Like I was actually just talking to someone about this, actually with 2 people, about how as a business owner, there's so much work that goes into it. So even if you're not with clients, you're doing client work, there's the admin, there's the accounting, there's the marketing, there's all of these things you have to do to maintain the business that takes
Yeah.
up so much time. So it's not
Yeah.
just clocking in and doing the client stuff. It's all the things, especially if you're solo,
Right.
like you have no one helping you but yourself. So you're wearing like a
Right.
1,000 hats at once.
Yeah. And I find that it's so much harder to turn it off when I'm off. It's like, even when I'm off, I'm in therapist Facebook groups learning or reading about this theory or this new approach or this new like thing that the field needs to be aware of, or responding to the I need a therapist posts in the local moms groups. And then it's just takes so much mental space in a way that I just I didn't know what I didn't know, type of thing.
Yeah. So would you, what would you want to change for things to be easier for you?
Really, it just if I had a more like kind of consistent, steady stream of referrals, I feel like that would free up a lot of the anxiety for me. But I'm primarily private pay. I take one insurance, but I'm primarily private pay. And so that, that is part of the issue. And I know that, but I also know the reason why I don't take Blue Cross Blue Shields or United or whatever. And so it's that constant kind of, I took insurance. I probably would be able to get clients in easier, but then there's the stress of dealing with insurance. And I've had a really hard time with Blue Cross Blue Shields in the past. And it's like they burned me in a way that I will never take your contracts again, type of thing. And so I know it's just you're trading one kind of stress and source of anxiety for another. And I've always weighing like which is easier to manage. But yeah, I think if I could get my marketing dialed in to a place where that felt productive, that felt like I was seeing some return on investment, not even like financial investment, but like time and energy, I would help. That would help quite a bit. I think it would.
Yeah, that's really true because it is a lot about like marketing, especially if you have like the 2 different niches that there's not a lot of overlap between the 2 of them. It definitely is a
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I've been through the whole like, what am I doing wrong? And why is none of this working? And I've paid for coaching, I've paid for people to consult and look over my website and look over, and what consistently has come back is no, all your website looks really great. There's not any massive changes I would recommend you make. So that's a bit hard too. And like, I feel like I've been spinning my wheels. And then when I reach out and bring in like the next level of professional to help, they're like, yeah, we don't really understand either why you haven't broken through into marketing. So it's, if we don't know what's wrong, how do we know how to fix it type of thing. So I'm cautiously hopeful. The start of this year, surprisingly, has been pretty good. So I don't know if maybe the universe is like, all right, she's put in enough dues. We're going to throw her a bone. Or I don't know, but I'm just hoping that maybe that will continue.
Thinking with the universe, though, like, something really, like, energetically wise, too. If you're approaching burnout, too, the universe is not going to bring you more people if you're not, and if not there for it either. So if you're not taking care of yourself the way you need to, your energy is going to stay here until you start taking care of yourself.
Yeah. No, that's an excellent point. I'm traveling with my husband next week. Yeah, next week. It's a work event for him, but I'm going with him. And usually I take my laptop and I just still see people. And because I don't want people to miss their sessions. And then, of course, from a financial perspective, it's, I don't want to not make money if I can make money. But I made a decision that I'm not going to see clients while we're traveling. It's just one day that I'll miss, but it's a day that's got a good number of clients on it. But I think because I've been noticing some of that burnout creeping in, that was part of that decision of, no, I'm not working this trip. I'm not working.
Yeah. And so maybe if you're thinking about more referrals, maybe like energetically just like shifting to like focusing on you a little bit more. So like, what hobbies have you been neglecting that maybe need to come back?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Not to have to therapize you a little bit, but
no. But no, it's an excellent point. It's an excellent point.
Yeah. It's just something that I've dealt with too personally is like wanting, like, figuring out like why are the referrals coming in, and then looking at my life and like, oh, that's why I've booked myself like all these events, all these things, and all because I'm involved in the community, and so I have all this stuff too that's going on too. So like, the universe is not gonna bring me more people when I don't have the space.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love the way of looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, too, like you said, like maybe like you're saying you need someone to have your son, and like just have more like the son time, and just the two of you do something with him instead of fulfilling with clients.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Laura, this has been amazing. So before we end, what tip or trick would you want to leave people with that they can take with them?
Oh man, that's a good one too. I would say something I've been really reading a lot about recently from a therapeutic lens is how our field has gotten in a lot of ways very rigid around like boundaries and how a therapist is supposed to present. And I just am really noticing that I'm being pulled towards authenticity. And I think that would be what I would offer to, especially like baby therapists, is don't lose who you are. Don't package away or sterilize who you are for quote unquote a therapist role. Like your clients want to see you as a human, and just leaning into that authenticity piece, I think is something I've really been reading about, exploring, and what I maybe want to put out into the universe.
That's so cool. Yeah, you're right too. Because people find us like on a rest or something, and they come to us because they're attracted to who we are as an individual. Because all of us have a similar training. All of us can work with similar issues. Like obviously, we're all niching in different areas, but we have the training. But how we present in the room definitely influences it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Last thing, what is your preferred way for people to find you?
So my website is the best way probably to find me, and that is www.inspiredmentalwellness.com.
Awesome. Thank you. And all your website, all your links will be in the end photo as well and in the description
Awesome.
below the video. So people can find you there. And
Okay.
it's just been amazing. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed it.